You're insane. You've been so
Somebody's gonna catch us. Look, you're gonna get me fucking killed.
In 1347, within an Italian convent, Sister Geneva observes that Sister Fernanda was absent from morning prayer and later discovers her returning with a donkey. Fernanda explains that the donkey escaped and she had to retrieve it, but Geneva finds this odd as the donkey couldn't have opened the gates. Additionally, Geneva is puzzled by Fernanda wearing her black habit. During spring, when the handyman Lurko greets them, the sisters chastise him, accusing him of being inappropriate for making eye contact as they must maintain purity. Later, Mother Maria questions Fernanda about her absence, growing skeptical of the donkey explanation, especially since it frequently goes missing under Fernanda's care. Maria then collaborates with Geneva to organize shelves, during which Geneva shares gossip about other nuns' misbehavior, such as overeating. However, her attention is momentarily diverted when she comes across a provocative drawing in a book. Meanwhile, Sister Alessandra is enduring a miserable existence. She finds herself in the convent against her will, as her father compelled her to support the church. Her days are spent in prayer and embroidery, yearning for the return of her suitor. Isolated from the outside world, her interactions with her father are limited, glimpsed through a metal shade during his visits. One afternoon, as the three sisters walk down the road, Lurko spots them, leading to Fernanda berating him for looking, with Geneva even throwing turnips at him. Initially shocked, Alessandra eventually joins in, hurling insults and venting her inner frustrations by breaking Lurko's belongings. Helpless, Lurko remains on the ground while the three girls mistreat him, spitting on him and hurling derogatory terms, including calling him a Jew. Later, Father Tommaso leaves the convent to sell the embroidery in town, and Lurko seizes the opportunity to express his exhaustion from the mistreatment, deciding to quit. Meanwhile, not far from the convent, Lord Bruno discovers his wife's affair with the servant Macedo. Upon entering the room, Macedo escapes through the window and returns to the servant's quarters, feigning sleep. To avoid a public confrontation, Bruno opts to cut a piece of Macedo's hair to identify him the next morning, preserving the appearance of normalcy in front of others. After Bruno departs, Macedo uses the same knife to cut a piece of hair from each servant in the room. The next morning, confusion reigns as nobody comprehends what transpired, leaving Bruno with no recourse but to instruct everyone to get a proper haircut. In due course, Bruno's wife approaches Macedo, expressing a desire to continue their affair. Despite Macedo's attempts to ignore her, she compels him to kiss her. Bruno, witnessing this, dispatches guards to kill Macedo. Fearing for his life, Macedo flees and manages to lose the guards by entering the forest near the river. There he encounters Tommaso, who, instead of selling the embroidery, has become inebriated and accidentally dropped all the fabrics into the water. Macedo assists in salvaging a few items and repairing the cart. Grateful, Tommaso offers Macedo a place to stay for the night. In the evening, they reside in Tommaso's shack, sharing food and drinks. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Macedo confesses his sins, revealing shocking and previously unknown naughty acts to Tommaso. When Macedo expresses his desire to start anew as a good man and reveals that he's being pursued, Tommaso comes up with a plan. The following day, Tommaso takes Macedo to the convent and presents him as the new handyman. However, Macedo pretends to be deaf-mute. When Maria inquires about the missing fabrics, Tommaso fabricates a story about being robbed. Macedo begins working alongside Geneva, catching Fernanda's immediate attention, sparking her curiosity about him. That night, Fernanda aids her friend Marta in sneaking into the convent, where they steal a mass wine. They bring her to Alessandra's room and persuade her to join them in getting drunk. Their revelry becomes so boisterous that Geneva approaches to complain, but instead, they pull her in and compel her to partake in the drinking. Eventually, Marta prompts Alessandra and Geneva to confess their lack of experience with men. After Alessandra falls asleep, Fernanda and Marta begin kissing and attempt to involve Geneva. Facing resistance, Fernanda escorts Geneva to her room, leading to an unexpected night together. The following day, Alessandra presents Macedo with an embroidered handkerchief, using it to wipe his sweat. As they work together in the garden, Alessandra, feeling warm, removes her veil, creating a tense moment. Suddenly, they start kissing and Macedo pushes Alessandra to the ground to escalate things. However, the bell rings, startling Alessandra, who pushes Macedo away and flees. During prayers later, Fernanda observes dirt under Alessandra's nails, raising her suspicion. Following their night together, Geneva attempts to discuss the events with Fernanda while they are doing the washing, but Fernanda dismisses the conversation. Marta and Fernanda then locate Macedo and use a knife to coerce him into engaging in intimate activities with both of them simultaneously. While they indulge in their activities, Geneva discovers the pot of belladonna and begins searching for them. However, by the time she finds them, the act is already over and Marta and Fernanda feign innocence. Geneva questions Fernanda about the significance of their night together, to which Fernanda claims it was just for fun and urges Geneva to forget about it. The following day, during an inspection by the bishop, while Maria and Tommaso are occupied, Macedo discreetly crawls through a window to enter Alessandra's room, engaging in intimate activities. The elderly helper sister enters but remains oblivious to their presence. However, Tommaso can't help but curse under his breath when he sees her. Alessandra, shocked by his sudden utterance, is unable to confront him as they hear others approaching. Tommaso hides under the bed, while Alessandra hastily rushes to work, trying to fix her disheveled clothing. Under the influence of the belladonna, Ginevra confesses a profound truth. She is attracted to women, and she is Jewish. As Fernanda enters wearing black with a knife in hand, she ties Macedo's hands and blindfolds him before leading him away. Growing suspicious, Alessandra and Ginevra decide to follow them, noting Fernanda's use of the usual donkey-related excuse. After crossing the forest for several hours in nightfall, they finally uncover the truth behind Fernanda's mysterious activities. It turns out she is a witch gathering with Marta and other witches in the forest. The scene unfolds with the witches dancing around a fire with minimal clothing, preparing Macedo for a fertility ritual. Ginevra, captivated by the spectacle, removes her clothes and joins the dancing, while Fernanda positions herself on Macedo, ready for the sacrifice. Macedo, realizing the impending danger, decides to plead for mercy. Fernanda interprets his words as a sign of being cured, but Marta merely gags him and prepares the knife. In the chaos, Alessandra seizes the opportunity to stop Fernanda and Macedo. The sisters then demand an explanation for Macedo's lies, but their confrontation is interrupted when Ginevra runs away with the donkey. Back at the convent, Ginevra returns, loudly pounding on doors to wake everyone up. The bishop is the first to find her, attempting to calm her down while she recounts everything she witnessed. As the rest of the group arrives, they all contribute to the chaotic argument. The bishop's frustration escalates until he learns that Ginevra is Jewish, leading to a sudden shift in the situation. Perplexed, the bishop seeks out Maria, who emerges from her room with a man's pants on her head. To everyone's astonishment, Macedo starts talking and Tommaso emerges to declare it a miracle. The next morning, the bishop enumerates Ginevra's sins and decides on a punishment of fasting for an entire year. Realizing that such a strict regimen might lead to her death, the decision is amended and Ginevra is to skip lunch every day for a year. Alessandra is judged next, and the bishop points out the disappointment her father will feel, prompting Alessandra to plead for mercy. Fernanda, on the other hand, shows indifference, rolling her eyes at the bishop's scolding. Lastly, Maria faces judgment, exchanging glances with Tommaso while the bishop speaks. In the end, the bishop strips Tommaso of his priesthood and banishes him to a monastery. Despite Tommaso's attempt at a heartfelt goodbye to Maria, the bishop forcefully removes him from the convent. A new priest arrives at the convent, an elderly man chosen to avoid trouble, but his shaky hands during communion prove to be an annoyance. The bishop ensures Ginevra is finally baptized. The sisters later apologize to each other, contemplating the fate of Macedo. Meanwhile, Macedo is returned to Bruno, who, having divorced his unfaithful wife, keeps Macedo imprisoned, opting to prolong his suffering rather than execute him. Despite Macedo's pleas to the guards for freedom, they merely scoff at him. Unexpectedly, a mysterious person leaves a turtle with a candle on its shell near the door. The guards are so captivated by it that they follow it, allowing the sisters to enter and replace Macedo with a doll, leaving it in the cell. They also give him a knife disguised in his habit, so he can disguise himself and hide with them in the convent. When the guards return, they fail to notice that the prisoner is now a doll. The group, now running through the forest, spots the convent's donkey on a bridge, revealing that Maria is using Fernanda's donkey. They plan to meet Tommaso in secret, sharing kisses under the moonlight, and the story concludes. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.